Amaya begged them to stop. She pleaded with them, but the jealous girls didn't listen. With cruel excitement, they lifted the bucket and poured the water over her head. And right before their eyes, the girl they thought they knew began to change. Because Amaya was not just the smartest girl in St. Catherine's Girls' Academy. Amaya was a child born from the river. The morning sun rose slowly above St. Catherine's Girls' Academy, casting golden lights across the tall mango trees that lined the school compound. St. Catherine's was a well-known boarding school located at the outskirts of town. The school had tall blue and cream-colored buildings, long corridors, and a large field where students gathered every morning for assembly. Girls in neatly ironed uniforms hurried from the hostels to the assembly ground, laughing and chatting as they went. But on that particular morning, many of the girls were whispering about the same person. "Did you see her test score?" One girl whispered. "100 in mathematics." Another replied, "Who even gets 100? And she also got the highest score in literature and biology too." A small group of girls stood near the staircase, whispering excitedly. At the center of their conversation was a girl named Amaya. Amaya had only joined St. Catherine's a few months earlier, yet she had already become one of the most popular girls in the school. She was exceptionally beautiful. Her skin was smooth and glowing like polished bronze. She had the kind of eyes that made people feel comfortable just by looking at them. But it wasn't just her beauty. Amaya was brilliant, no matter the subject: mathematics, literature, biology. She seemed to understand everything almost immediately. Teachers often paused while marking scripts, staring at her answers with amazement. "Who taught you this method?" one teacher once asked. Amaya only smiled politely. "No one, ma. I just tried it that way." Her classmates admired her. She was never proud, never rude, never arrogant. If someone didn't understand the topic, Amaya would sit with them patiently during evening prep and explain it again and again until they finally understood. Soon, it became normal to see a small group of girls around her desk every evening. And she never complained. Teachers loved her. Students loved her even more. Even the strictest staff member in the school, Mrs. Ajayi, once said during assembly, "If every student in this school behaved like Amaya, my work would be very easy." The entire school had burst into laughter. Amaya only smiled shyly. However, there was one girl who did not like her at all. Her name was Stephanie. Before Amaya arrived at St. Catherine's, Stephanie had been the star girl of the school. She was brilliant in class, confident in debates, and always at the center of every school event. Whenever prizes were given during assembly, Stephanie's name was usually called. Best student in mathematics, best student in literature, best speaker in debate club. Students admired her. Teachers praised her. Stephanie enjoyed the attention. It made her feel powerful. But everything changed the day Amaya arrived. Amaya wasn't even competing or trying to be noticed. She was simply good at everything she did. Suddenly, the attention shifted. Now teachers say things like, "Look at Amaya's essay. Amaya solved this problem perfectly. Amaya helped 3 girls improve their grades." Stephanie hated it. She hated the way people admired her. She hated the way teachers praised her. But most of all, she hated how effortless everything seemed for her. Stephanie sat in the hostel common room with her 3 closest friends, Lara, Monica, and Titi. The 4 girls were inseparable. though everyone knew Stephanie was the leader of the group. What Stephanie said usually became the final decision. Stephanie slammed her notebook on the desk angrily. "I'm tired of hearing that girl's name everywhere," she snapped. Lara raised an eyebrow. "You mean Amaya?" "Yes," Stephanie said sharply. "She just came here and suddenly everyone acts like she's the queen of the school." Monica shrugged. "Well, she's really smart." Stephanie shot her a sharp look. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm just saying," Monica muttered, lowering her gaze. Titi leaned forward, lowering her voice as if she were about to reveal a secret. "But have you noticed something strange about her?" Stephanie looked up. "What?" Titi glanced around the room before speaking again. "She never removes her scarf." The three girls exchanged glances. It was true. Amaya was always wearing a scarf. There were other girls in school who tied scarves too, so nobody thought much about it. But Amaya's case was different. She wore it everywhere, in class, at the dining hall, during prep time, even inside the hostel. The scarf was always tied neatly around her head. She had never removed it, not once. No one had ever seen her hair. Lara frowned. "That's true. I've never seen her hair." "Me too," Monica added. Stephanie leaned back slowly. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "That's strange," she murmured. Stephanie began to observe Amaya carefully. At breakfast, at dinner, in class, in the hostel. One thing became very clear. Amaya never removed her scarf. Even when other girls relaxed in the hostel at night with their hair loose, Amaya's scarf remained tied firmly. One evening, Lara whispered while they watched Amaya reading quietly. "Maybe she has a scarf problem." Monica laughed softly. "Or maybe she's bored." Stephanie shook her head. No. Her eyes were sharp. "There's something else. Something deeper. Something mysterious." She started paying attention to Amaya's routine. Soon, she noticed something unusual. Amaya always woke up earlier than everyone else, before the hostel bell rang, before the other girls stirred from sleep, and she always went to the bathroom first. By the time the other girls arrived, she was already done bathing. And that night, when everyone had finished bathing and the bathroom was empty, Amaya would go in alone. Lara frowned when Stephanie pointed it out. "That's actually creepy." Stephanie's eyes glittered with suspicion. "She's hiding something, I'm sure of it." "What could she possibly hide in her hair?" Monica asked. Stephanie crossed her arms slowly. "What if her power comes from it?" The room went silent. "Power?" Titi whispered. Stephanie leaned closer. "Think about it. She's good at everything. She's loved by everyone. Nothing seems difficult for her. Maybe the secret is in her hair." The girls looked at each other nervously. The idea sounded crazy, but the more they thought about it, the more it seemed possible. Stephanie's lips slowly curled into a cold smile. "Well, there's only one way to find out." That night, the hostel was quiet. Most of the girls were already asleep. The corridor lights cast long, dim shadows along the walls, making the place look eerie and still. Stephanie and her friends hid quietly near the bathroom corridor. They waited and waited. Then finally, the bathroom door opened. Amaya stepped inside, holding a small bucket of water and a towel. Her scarf was tied neatly around her head. Stephanie whispered, her voice barely audible. "She's bathing." The girl stayed hidden. A few minutes later, Amaya finished bathing. She stepped out quietly, carrying her bucket. Her scarf was still firmly tied. She began walking slowly toward the hostel room. Suddenly, Stephanie and her friends jumped out. The 4 girls rushed forward and grabbed Amaya roughly. "What are you doing?" Amaya cried in shock, struggling in their grip. Stephanie grabbed the edge of the scarf. "Let's see what you are hiding." "Please stop," Amaya pleaded desperately. But they refused to listen. They pulled her scarf. Stephanie and her friends gasped as her long dark hair spilled down her shoulders like a waterfall. She was hiding nothing in her hair. She actually had beautiful hair. But Stephanie wasn't satisfied. She grabbed Amaya's hair roughly. "Please, let me go," Amaya begged, fear filling her voice. Then Stephanie picked up a bucket of water. Her eyes burned with cruel excitement. "Let's wash away your magic." Lara, Titi, and Monica held Amaya down. Stephanie splashed the water directly onto Amaya's head. The girls laughed at her mockingly. Then suddenly, Amaya began to shake violently. Her body started to glow faintly. The air around them grew strangely cold. Stephanie stepped back in confusion. "What is happening?" Amaya cried out as her body trembled. Her legs twisted together as shimmering scales slowly appeared on her skin. Stephanie's mouth fell open. Her friends froze in terror. Slowly, right before their eyes, Amaya's legs merged together. The skin transformed into smooth, glistening scales. A long, beautiful silver tail appeared where her legs had been. The bucket fell from Stephanie's hand and clattered loudly on the floor. None of the girls could move. None of them could even scream. They could only stare in horror. Amaya had turned into a mermaid. The scales reflected colors like moonlight on water: blue, silver, and soft green. Her hair, now wet, clung to her shoulders as she struggled to breathe. "Please," she whispered weakly, reaching out to them. Stephanie's face turned pale. Her lips trembled. Monica began shaking uncontrollably. She's a... But she couldn't finish the sentence. The word refused to come out. It was as if her throat had closed. Stephanie and the others suddenly froze completely. Their bodies stiffened like statues. They could not blink. They could not move. They could not speak. Standing a few steps away from them was Miss Ekanem, one of the teachers at St. Catherine's. She was the literature teacher. She rarely spoke loudly. She never shouted. She had a warm smile that was always on her face. Yet, there was something about her presence that made students behave properly. But at that moment, something about her seemed different. Her eyes looked unusually bright, almost like the surface of water when sunlight touches it. It was she who had frozen Stephanie and her friends. Miss Ekanem knelt beside Amaya. The girl looked at her with frightened eyes. Miss Ekanem placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Do not be afraid, daughter of the sea." Amaya stared at her in shock. Miss Ekanem smiled slightly. "I have been watching you, guiding you, protecting you." She turned her head slowly and looked toward the frozen girls. They were not meant to discover this. Amaya's voice trembled. "My mother warned me. Water must not touch my hair." "I know," the teacher said gently. "I know everything." Then she leaned closer and whispered something that made Amaya's eyes grow even wider. "Because, child," her bright eyes glimmered softly, "I am from the sea too." With a simple wave of her hand, Stephanie and her friends walked back to the dormitory, still under her spell. Miss Ekanem gently helped Amaya sit up. The silver tail glimmered faintly under the dim corridor lights. "Be calm," the teacher said softly. She touched the tail lightly, almost reverently, then began speaking in a strange language no human could understand. The words flow softly, like the sound of water. When she finished, she brought out a small bottle and handed it to Amaya. "Drink." Amaya obeyed. Miss Ekanem then placed her hand on the tail again. Slowly, the shimmering scales faded, the tail split, and Amaya's legs returned. Amaya stared in shock. Miss Ekanem helped her stand. "Go and sleep now, Amaya," she said gently. "And be more careful. You might not be lucky next time." Still shaking, Amaya quickly tied her scarf tightly around her head and hurried back to her dormitory. Amaya lay on her hostel bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet. Most of the girls were asleep, breathing softly under their blankets. But Amaya could not sleep. Her mind kept replaying the moment the water touched her hair. The shaking, the glow, the sudden transformation. For years, her mother had warned her again and again, never let water touch your hair. When she was younger, Amaya thought it was just one of those strange rules parents made. But as she grew older, her mother finally told her the truth. The story began many years before Amaya was born. In a quiet village, surrounded by farms and palm trees, lived a woman named Obidia and her husband Ndoka. They had a peaceful home and enough to live on, but they had no child. For 10 years, Obidia could not conceive. People began to whisper that she was barren. The words broke her heart. She prayed, fasted, and visited doctors, but nothing changed. Then one evening in the market, an old woman approached her. "You carry the pain of an empty womb," the old woman said. When Obidia admitted it was true. "If you truly want a child, go to the river at midnight and beg the river goddess," the old woman advised her. Desperate, Obidia did exactly that. That night, she knelt by the dark river and cried out for help. Suddenly, the water rippled, and a beautiful woman rose from the river, shining like moonlight. "I have heard your cries, daughter of the earth," the river goddess said. "I will give you a daughter, but she will not be entirely human." Obidia listened carefully. "Until she turns 16, water must never touch her hair. If it does, she will transform into a creature of the water." "A mermaid?" Obidia asked nervously. The goddess nodded. "And you must bring her to the river on her 16th birthday for the final ritual." After only a moment of hesitation, Obidia bowed deeply. "I accept." The goddess smiled. "Then go home. Your womb will soon carry life." And just as she promised, a few weeks later, Obidia found out she was pregnant. When Amaya was born, the entire village celebrated. She was the most beautiful baby anyone had ever seen. She had glowing skin and calm, bright eyes. People often gathered just to admire her. But Obidia never forgot the promise she made to the river goddess. From the beginning, she protected Amaya carefully. Whenever she bathed her, she made sure water never touched the child's hair. She cleaned her body gently while keeping her hair completely dry. As Amaya grew older, Obidia trained her to always keep her hair braided and covered with a scarf. Over time, the habit became part of who she was. Everywhere she went, the scarf remained on her head. People in school grew used to calling her the girl with the scarf. Yet, Amaya was admired not just for that, but for her intelligence, kindness, and calm nature. Teachers loved her, and many students looked up to her. When she was finally admitted into St. Catherine's Girls' Academy, Obidia worried about sending her to a boarding school. but Amaya promised she would continue protecting her hair. Neither of them knew that one day, inside the hostel, that promise would be tested by jealousy and curiosity. The morning after the bathroom incident, Stephanie and her friends remembered nothing about the night before. When they woke up, they felt strangely calm. Even Stephanie seemed different. The jealousy she once felt toward Amaya had completely faded. She no longer glared at her or whispered behind her back. She even greeted her politely. Amaya noticed the change. It felt strange, but she understood why. Still, Amaya became extra careful. She never allowed anyone near her hair, and her scarf remained tightly tied every single day. Weeks passed quickly, and soon the school term ended. As usual, Amaya came first in all her subjects. Before leaving for the holidays, she hugged Miss Ekanem goodbye. Back in the village, Obidia was relieved and overjoyed to see her daughter. She had worried the whole time Amaya was away at school. As they talked and laughed together, one important day was drawing closer. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived. Amaya woke early. It was her 16th birthday. Obidia had already prepared the offerings: a goat, a hen, several yams, palm oil, and small gifts wrapped in clothes. Together, they walked quietly to the river. At the riverbank, Obidia arranged the offerings carefully and bowed. "O goddess of the sea, I have come as promised. My daughter has reached her 16th birthday," she called softly. Then she turned to Amaya. "My daughter, it is time." Amaya slowly untied her scarf. For the first time in her life, her hair was uncovered beneath the open sky. She stepped into the river. The cool water rose from her feet, to her knees, to her waist. Taking a deep breath, she dipped her head fully into the water. Then she rose. Obidia stared anxiously. Amaya was still standing normally. No tail, no scales, just her human form. Relief flooded Obidia's face as Amaya laughed with joy. She was now fully human. Beside them, the river flowed peacefully. And somewhere, deep beneath the water, the river goddess smiled. When the new school term began, the compound of St. Catherine's Girls' Academy slowly filled again with noise and excitement as students returned from holiday. Amaya arrived quietly that afternoon, pulling her suitcase behind her. But this time, something was different. She was not wearing a scarf. Her long hair was neatly braided, the dark braids falling gently over her shoulders and down her back. A few girls standing near the hostel entrance stared in surprise. "Wait, is that Amaya?" "It is. But where is her scarf?" Within minutes, whispers spread across the compound. Girls turned their heads as Amaya walked past them calmly. Even Stephanie stopped when she saw her. She simply looked at Amaya's braids in amazement. Then she smiled warmly. "You look really beautiful." Amaya smiled back. "Thank you." Later that evening, as Amaya walked past the staff building, she noticed Miss Ekanem standing quietly by the window. Their eyes met. The teacher gave her a small, knowing smile. Amaya smiled back. The secret of the river was over, and the girl who once hid her hair beneath a scarf could now walk freely at last.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bye!